Arthur No Fee Fitness here. Today we are going to pin down weekly training volume for real-life strength and muscle gains without dumbing it down. I will give you clear starting numbers in words, why those numbers change as you get stronger, how to push volume higher without frying your recovery, and what to watch in your own training so you know when to hold, when to add, and when to pull back. We will also walk through beginner, intermediate, and advanced templates, and I will show you how very high volume can work in narrow cases and why it often fails when you spread it across too many lifts at once. First, the foundation you can trust. Doing several working sets beats doing a single set for both muscle and strength. Think of one set as tasting the sauce and several sets as actually eating dinner. If you only taste, you never get enough stimulus to grow or to get significantly stronger. For most lifters who have at least about 1 year of consistent training, the dependable weekly zone per muscle group is roughly 12 to 20 working sets. Inside that zone, most people see steady muscle gain, rising 1 repetition maximums and manageable recovery. Some muscles, like the triceps, often like a bit more work. Others, like the quadriceps and the biceps, usually do well inside that 12 to 20 set window. Now the part nobody likes to hear but everybody needs. Training status matters more than how many years you have been around the gym. If your best squat, bench, or deadlift is still near a beginner level, your body will respond to fewer sets. If you truly are strong and technically clean, you will usually need more total work to keep moving the needle. Progress behaves like a hill that gets steeper. At the bottom, a handful of sets moves you up fast. As you climb, you need more steps for smaller gains. That is the law of diminishing returns. It does not mean more is automatically better. It means more is sometimes required, and the payoff per unit shrinks. Here is how to use weekly sets in a way that respects both physiology and your schedule. If you are newer or returning after time off, start around 8 to 12 working sets per muscle group each week, split across 2 or 3 sessions. Keep most sets near but not at failure. A simple rule that works: rack the weight when you honestly have about 1 or 2 clean repetitions still in reserve. Your last rep in the set should slow, but not turn into an ugly grind. Breathe, brace, keep the bar path consistent, and make sure every rep looks like it belonged in that set. If you are consistently trained for about a year or more, lift inside that 12 to 20 set window for most muscle groups. Spread the work over at least 2 days. Track simple signals that do not lie. How fast the first rep of a working set moves, whether your technique holds under pressure, how you sleep, how your joints feel, how your appetite and mood look, and whether your numbers trend up across weeks. If the bar is moving and you feel human, you can add a little. If the bar stalls while first reps feel heavy and slow, sleep turns choppy, and small aches linger, you need to trim volume or step back from the edge of failure. Add volume like an adult, increase by 1 set for the target muscle group every 1 or 2 weeks at most. Do not add sets everywhere at once. Give each change 2 or 3 weeks to show you something. If performance improves and recovery holds, keep it. If performance flattens or drops, remove the extra set and try again later. Specificity is not a buzzword. It is how your body decides what to adapt to. If your priority is a bigger back squat, 1 repetition maximum, put most of your extra sets into squatting and close squat variations. If you spend 20 extra sets a week on leg presses and extensions while barely squatting, do not be shocked when your squat does not climb as much as you hoped. Adaptations are local and pattern specific. You grow what you practice. Exercise selection controls fatigue more than people think. Big compound lifts are expensive in recovery. Machine variations and controlled accessories are cheaper. Small isolation work is cheapest. Put the bulk of very high volume on the cheaper work, keep the most demanding lifts in that effective but recoverable zone, and sprinkle truly brutal sets very carefully. Keep easier weeks in the calendar. After 3 or 4 focused weeks, run 1 lighter week where you reduce total sets and stop sets earlier. That easier week is not a step backward, it is the spring that reloads the next block. You keep skill fresh, let connective tissue catch up, and return feeling like the bar wants to move again. Now let us talk about the elephant in the room. Very high weekly volumes. Can more than 20 sets per muscle group per week help? Sometimes, yes. Trained lifters who recover well and build volume gradually can still squeeze gains from very high volume, especially when that volume is concentrated on 1 main movement and increased step by step. There are programs where lifters added a few sets every 2 weeks and kept getting stronger for about 3 months, even when the final weeks were extremely high for that single lift. But there are also programs where pushing volume too high across several different leg exercises actually slowed progress in the squat because fatigue spread everywhere and the nervous system never had a chance to show strength. The honest takeaway is this: very high volume can work for the right person, in the right context, for a short season, and usually when it is focused on one movement pattern instead of being sprayed across everything. Because people love concrete guidance, here are practical lanes for 3 levels of experience, all written in words, not digits. For beginners, aim for about 8 to 12 working sets each week per large muscle group such as the quadriceps, the hamstrings and glutes, the back, and the chest, and about 6 to 10 sets for smaller groups such as the biceps, triceps, and shoulders. Split that over 2 or 3 days. Keep 1 or 2 clean reps in reserve on almost all sets. Add a single set to one muscle group every 1 or 2 weeks if your sleep, mood, and bar speed are good. If any of those drift, take 1 set away and hold the line. For intermediates, live mostly in that 12 to 20 set range per muscle group per week. On your main lifts, place 2 or 3 sets per session in a heavier, lower repetition range to keep the strength skill hot and fill the rest with moderate repetitions where the last rep slows but stays clean. If a muscle is lagging, add 1 set to that muscle every other week and reassess after 2 or 3 weeks. Schedule 1 easier week after 3 or 4 working weeks. For advanced lifters, you may occasionally push beyond 20 weekly sets for a targeted muscle or a single key lift, but do it with a plan. Concentrate that extra work on closely related variations and build up gradually over several weeks. Keep the truly heavy practice crisp and limited. When bar speed on first reps degrades or joints start whispering, trim the extra sets before you burn the house down. After a short push, pull back for at least 1 quieter week so your strength actually shows up. Distribution across the week matters as much as the total. Most people do better with at least 2 exposures per muscle group each week. 3 exposures can work very well when the sessions are shorter and recovery is tight. 1 exposure per week can work for maintenance or for very large sessions, but it often creates huge single-day fatigue that leaks into the rest of your life. Rep ranges are tools, not uniforms. Heavy work in the range of 1 to 5 repetitions is great for practicing the skill of lifting maximal loads. Moderate work in the range of 6 to 12 repetitions is the bread and butter for growth when the total weekly sets are there and you keep 1 or 2 repetitions in reserve. Higher repetition work in the teens can build muscle well on the right exercises, but the fatigue cost on free barbell lifts gets high. Save the highest rep work for safer, cheaper movements. Rest periods are a hidden part of volume. Rushing through sets to fit more in turns quality volume into noise. For heavy compound sets, rest at least about 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes longer. For moderate accessory sets, rest about 1 to 2 minutes. For small isolation moves, shorter rests often work fine if the next set still looks like training and not survival. Set quality decides whether a set counts. A clean, technically consistent set stopped with 1 or 2 honest repetitions in reserve is worth far more than a sloppy grinder that teaches your body to move poorly. If your last rep turns your bar path into a question mark or your torso position collapses, you went too far for that day. Earn the right to push later by being disciplined now. Let us zoom into 2 case studies so you can hear how this sounds in practice. Case 1 is a lifter who squats about body weight for a smooth triple, benches around body weight for a single, and deadlifts about 1.5 times body weight for a single. They train 3 days per week. Week 1, they run about 5 sets for quadriceps each day, 2 days a week for roughly 10 weekly sets, 4 sets for chest twice a week for about 8 sets, 4 sets for back twice a week for about 8 sets, and 2 or 3 small sets for arms and shoulders each day they train. Everything stops with 1 or 2 clean repetitions in reserve. Bar speed looks better by week 2. Week 3, they add 1 set to quadriceps on one of the days and 1 set to back on the other, taking those to roughly 12 and 10 sets. By the end of week 4, numbers trend up and joints are happy, so week 5 is a lighter week with fewer sets and earlier stopping. That is how you turn a template into progress without living in the gym. Case 2 is a lifter who has several years of consistent training and wants a bigger back squat. They already perform around 16 weekly sets for legs across squats, leg presses, and accessory work. For the next mesocycle, they keep the heavy squat practice as 2 or 3 crisp sets of singles or doubles twice a week and increase total squat-like work by adding 1 small set every other week to a closed variation such as a paused high bar squat. They remove 1 leg press set to keep total weekly fatigue in check. After about 6 weeks, they are up to roughly 20 total squat pattern sets, while heavy practice still feels fast. They hold that for one more week, then run a lighter week with fewer sets and no added volume. The following block, the heavy singles move faster and they push a new clean top single. That is how you aim high volume at one pattern and make it work rather than just piling sets everywhere. People also ask about protein because it connects directly to how much training you can productively use. Most lifters do very well around 1 6/10 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Higher intakes can fit some preferences, but going far above that rarely adds meaningful muscle or strength for most people if your training is already well designed. Think of protein, calories, sleep, and stress as the support beams that hold up your training volume. If those beams are weak, adding more sets is like adding a second floor to a house with a shaky foundation. You also need simple indicators that tell you when to adjust. If your first rep on your main lift feels fast and confident after a standard warm-up, your technique holds, your sleep is decent, and your logbook shows small, steady increases, you are in the pocket. If first reps feel heavy, you need extra sets to reach the same performance you had last month. You start missing planned targets, or little aches keep hanging around. Your volume or your closeness to failure is too high for your current recovery. The fix is not heroic. Remove 1 or 2 sets from the problem area, stop sets 1 rep earlier for a week or 2, and check the signals again. If things improve, hold the new level. If they do not, pull back a bit more for one easier week before you add again. Let me give you 2 long-form templates you can read once and run for months. A 4-day upper and lower split. Day 1 is squat focused. Begin with your main squat for 2 or 3 heavy practice sets, and then 3 to 5 moderate sets where the last rep slows but stays clean. Add hamstring work and core. Day 2 is press and pull. Begin with your main press for 2 or 3 heavy practice sets, follow with moderate dumbbell or machine pressing, row variations, and small triceps and shoulder work. Day 3 is hinge focused. Deadlift or a close variation for 2 or 3 heavy practice sets and 3 to 5 moderate sets, follow with posterior chain accessories and single leg work. Day 4 returns to press and pull with a different angle. For example, overhead pressing as the main lift and pulling variations you did not hit on day 2. Start this template with roughly 12 to 16 total sets per large muscle each week, and add 1 set to the priority muscle every other week if signals are green. After 3 or 4 weeks, run 1 easier week, then repeat. A 3-day full body plan. Day 1 begins with a heavy practice set or 2 on the squat and then moderate back and chest work. Day 2 begins with a heavy practice set or 2 on the bench press and then moderate lower body and pull work. Day 3 begins with a heavy practice set or 2 on the deadlift or a close variation and then moderate press and row work. Accessories rotate to cover weak links. Start with about 8 to 12 weekly sets per large muscle and move toward 12 to 20 as you settle in. Add 1 set where you want priority and hold steady elsewhere. Insert a lighter week after 3 or 4 weeks. Simplicity wins because it is sustainable. If you are progressing and feel okay, keep going. If you are progressing but feel beat up, keep the number of sets but stop earlier in the set and check sleep and nutrition. If you are not progressing and feel okay, add 1 set to the lagging muscle or the target pattern. If you are not progressing and feel fatigued, remove 1 or 2 sets and clean up sleep and nutrition before you add anything. In one sentence, you can carry into the gym. Most trained lifters grow best around 12 to 20 weekly sets per muscle. Beginners can thrive with less. Some advanced lifters can benefit from more for short bursts when the extra work is focused and built gradually. And everyone should earn the right to add sets by proving they can recover from the sets they already do. No fee, no nonsense, just gains.